Alrighty, you guys, let's talk about Israel Adesanya versus Nasruddin Imavov. I just finished watching the fight, and honestly, I have a lot to say. Off the bat, nothing looked off with Izzy. Physically, he looked like an absolute unit. You could tell he put in a lot of work in the gym. He looked strong, well-conditioned, and if anything, this might have been one of the best shapes we've seen him in. The resistance training and the grappling, it seemed to be all dialed in. And for the most part, the fight started exactly how you expect from an Adesanya fight. He controlled the range, worked the low kicks, stayed elusive, and forced Imavov to play a game of chess on the feet. But as we all saw, that wasn't enough. Imavov managed to close the distance, land the right shots, and put Izzy away. Now, is this just a case of he got caught, or are there deeper issues at play? Now let's really break it down. The first round, classic Izzy until it wasn't. The first round was vintage Adesanya. He controlled the pace, picked his shots, and tore up Imavov's lead leg. Every time Imavov tried to pressure in, Izzy would stick him with the jab or force him to reset with a low kick. It was the same fundamental game plan that made Adesanya one of the best strikers in the sport. What impressed me the most was his takedown defense. Imavov went for 3 takedowns in that round, and Izzy stuffed them all with ease. Not only that, when Imavov shot for the first one, Adesanya actually reversed him and briefly took top position. That, to me, was a huge statement. It showed that physically, Izzy was on point. His hips were strong, and he was more than ready to deal with Imavov's grappling threat. But then, in the final seconds of the round, something happened. Imavov slipped into boxing range and landed a huge uppercut. That moment right there was the first real sign of danger. Izzy backed up, got caught against the cage, and had to survive a wild exchange before the round ended. He still won on the round, in my opinion, but that was the first crack in the armor. The second round, the beginning of the end. The second round starts and we see the same thing. Adesanya dictating range, landing low kicks, jabbing, moving, but then we get an accidental eye poke. Now let's be clear. This wasn't some game-changing foul. Izzy took just a few seconds to recover and said he was good to go, and then the fight resumed. But literally 5 seconds later, the restart happens and then boom, Imavov lands a massive overhand right. Follows up with a left and drops Izzy from there. It was over. Ground and pound and the referee stops in, fight done. And I know the first reaction from a lot of fans is, oh, he just got caught. And technically, yeah, that's what happened. But then you really analyze it, and there was a clear flaw that led to that moment. The real issue, distance management. This is what's frustrating. Adesanya is known for his distance control. That's what made him elite for so many years. But in this fight, he let Imavov slip into boxing range too often, and Imavov took credit, took full advantage, and knocked him out. This isn't new either. We've seen this before. Go back to the Kelvin Gastelum fight. Izzy got caught repeatedly in the pocket. Even in the first Alex Pereira fight, the knockout happened after Pereira checked a kick and then forced him into a tight boxing exchange. And now, against Imavov, the same thing happened. Izzy has always been a master of keeping his fights at range. But for whatever reason, in this fight, he wasn't able to maintain that control. And it's not just about movement. He had tools he didn't use. One thing I really noticed, no teep kicks. That was a big mistake. Imavov was standing right in front of him, and Izzy kept using jabs and low kicks to keep him at bay. But where were the teeps? That's one of the best tools to stop an opponent from closing the distance. Instead of jabbing and moving, he could have planted his foot into Imavov's stomach repeatedly and kept him out of boxing range. And when he got backed up to the cage, he needed to escape immediately. Instead, he stood there and tried to exchange. That's not his game. That has never been his game. Izzy should not be standing in the pocket, especially with someone whose best shot at winning is landing a big punch. So what's next for Izzy? So where does he go from here? This is now 3 losses in a row, and while he still looks physically capable of competing at the highest level, if he loses his next fight, we have to start asking real questions about his futures. I think a good fight would be the winner of Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze. Skill-wise, he should handle either of those guys. But it's a real test. If he struggles, or worst case, loses, then yeah, we have to seriously consider whether he's still a top contender. Another option? A rematch with Paulo Costa. Now, hear me out. Izzy destroyed Costa the first time, but Costa fought completely out of character. In that fight, he stood at range, tried to counterstrike, and didn't pressure the way he usually does. If we got a Costa who fights the way he's supposed to, walking forward, throwing bombs, it would be interesting to see how Izzy would deal with that now. Final thoughts. Is this the end? Look, I'm not ready to say Adesanya is done. He still looks physically sharp. His skill set is still elite. And for the most part, this fight, he was in complete control. But the fact remains, fighters are figuring him out. His striking range is still deadly, but his weakness in boxing exchanges has been exposed. If he wants to keep competing at the top, he has to make adjustments. He has to stop standing in the pocket when he doesn't need to. He has to bring back the teep kicks and fully commit to keeping his opponents at range. Because if he doesn't, Father Time is undefeated. And even though he's not slowing down physically, the game is catching up. Izzy's still got time to turn things around. But his next fight, yeah, that's going to tell us everything. Alright guys, that's my breakdown. Let me know what you guys think. Was this just a case of he got caught? Or do we need to start having conversations about Adesanya's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and I'm out, man.